Every coin tells a story. Some whisper about liberty, others echo tales of forgotten frontiers. But few combine both quite like the 2005 Liberty $quarter, better known as the Kansas quarter. It's small, shiny, and often overlooked. Yet within its silver-gray surface lies a legend of freedom, endurance, and the wide-open heart of the American plains. Today, we uncover the myths, mysteries, and modern worth of the 2005 Liberty $quarter, Kansas 1851 coin, a piece that captures the soul of the West and the enduring idea of liberty itself. At the dawn of the 21st century, the United States Mint launched an ambitious project, the 50-State Quarters Program. From 1999 to 2008, each state was honored with a unique design celebrating its history, geography, and culture. What began as a coinage initiative soon became a nationwide sensation. Suddenly, pocket change turned into a collectible adventure. Families, students, and lifelong numismatists found themselves hunting for new quarters with every trip to the grocery store. When Kansas entered the series in 2005, its design stood out for its elegant simplicity, a buffalo, a sunflower, and a story that spoke directly to America's roots. On the reverse side of the coin, designed by artist Conrad Sandstrom, stands a mighty American bison, head lowered in calm strength, surrounded by the inscription Kansas, 1861. Beneath, it grows the sunflower, bright and hopeful, the official flower of the Sunflower State. To the casual observer, it's just another quarter. But to those who look closer, it's a miniature work of art, an emblem of freedom, struggle, and rebirth. Here's where the myths begin. Many collectors online call this the 1851 Liberty $quarter, confusing its symbolism with older 19th century Liberty coinage. In truth, Kansas joined the Union in 1861, not 1851, and the quarter proudly bears that year. The Liberty nickname comes not from its date, but from its spirit. It draws inspiration from the liberty-seated quarter of the 1800s, where Lady Liberty personified the nation's ideals. In 2005, Liberty took a new form, not as a goddess, but as a buffalo standing free on the plains. To understand that connection, we travel back to the mid-1800s. Between 1838 and 1891, the liberty-seated quarter circulated across America, bearing the image of a seated liberty holding a shield, a guardian of national pride. As the frontier expanded, those coins jangled in the pockets of pioneers, farmers, and soldiers alike. They were everyday reminders of a young nation's dream. By the time Kansas became a state in 1861, liberty was more than a concept. It was being tested in the fires of bleeding Kansas, a violent struggle between pro- and anti-slavery settlers. The fight determined not just the fate of Kansas, but the moral direction of the United States. That's why the Kansas quarter symbolism is so powerful. The buffalo represents strength and endurance, the untamed spirit of the frontier. The sunflower represents resilience and hope, the promise that no matter how dark the storm, light will return. Together, they tell a silent story of a people who endured conflict and emerged free. Before 1861, Kansas was raw and wild. Buffalo roamed by the millions across vast grasslands. Native tribes such as the Osage, Kansa, and Pawnee lived in balance with nature. But as settlers moved west, tensions erupted, first between indigenous peoples and newcomers, and later between abolitionists and slaveholders. When Kansas finally joined the Union as a free state, it became a symbol of moral victory. The 2005 quarter, released nearly 150 years later, carries that legacy in its metal, freedom hard-won, preserved, and celebrated. The buffalo itself has its own incredible story. For centuries, it was the heartbeat of the Great Plains, sustaining native communities who used every part of the animal. Yet by the late 1800s, overhunting nearly wiped it out. From tens of millions, only a few hundred survived. But thanks to conservationists and ranchers, including President Theodore Roosevelt, the species made a miraculous comeback. By the time the Kansas quarter was minted, the buffalo had become a living symbol of American resilience. On the coin, it stands tall and peaceful, facing left, its heavy frame rooted like the land itself, a visual poem about survival. Next to it, the sunflower glows with quiet dignity. Kansas officially adopted it as its state flower in 1903, calling it a symbol of the pioneer spirit. Sunflowers thrive in harsh conditions, turning toward the sun no matter how strong the wind blows. On the coin, it reminds us that beauty and hope can bloom even after hardship. Together, the buffalo and sunflower create a perfect balance of strength and serenity, earth and sky, endurance and optimism. Now, let's talk minting. The 2005 Kansas quarter was produced at 3 mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Over 563 million coins were struck, about 263 million in Philadelphia, 280 million in Denver, and a smaller number of proof versions in San Francisco for collectors. The Philadelphia and Denver coins circulated nationwide, while the San Francisco proofs came in both clad and silver versions, sold in collector sets. Each coin began as a copper-nickel blank, heated, cleaned, and struck under immense pressure, about 35 tons per strike. The result was a crisp, detailed design that gleams with contrast between smooth fields and frosted reliefs. But among those hundreds of millions, something unexpected happened. A minting error that would go down in numismatic folklore, the infamous "In God We Rust" variety. On some 2005 Kansas quarters, the T in trust appears missing, leaving the phrase "In God We Rust." The cause? Grease and debris clogged the die cavity during striking, preventing the T from being fully impressed. While such grease-filled die errors are relatively common, this one struck collectors as both hilarious and iconic. The phrase spread online, in magazines, and across coin forums. People began checking their pocket change hoping to find one. Today, the "In God We Rust" error is among the most sought-after modern quarter varieties. Depending on condition, examples can sell for anywhere from $50 to $250, sometimes higher if certified, by grading services like PCGS or NGC. In pristine mint state, with strong luster and minimal contact marks, values can reach $400 or more. The error reminds us that even mistakes can become legends. Other Kansas quarter varieties exist too: double dies, off-center strikes, and clipped planchets, each with its own fan base. A double die coin, where letters or images appear slightly duplicated, can fetch $100 to $300 depending on visibility. Off-center strikes, where the design is misaligned, often bring similar premiums. Each one transforms a common quarter into a rare collectible. For regular 2005 Kansas quarters, the value depends on condition and mint mark. In circulated form, they remain worth face value, 25 cents. But uncirculated examples graded MS65 can sell for $10 to $20, while exceptionally high-grade pieces, MS68 or MS69, have reached auction records around $1,000 to $1,200. Proof: silver editions from San Francisco, with their mirror-like surfaces, usually sell for $15 to $30. The coin's appeal isn't purely financial, it's emotional, historical, and artistic. Yet, confusion persists. Some online listings call the coin 1851 Kansas Liberty Quarter. Where does 1851 come from? The answer lies in myth. Kansas wasn't yet a state in 1851. It became a territory in 1854 and achieved statehood in 1861. The 1851 reference likely arose from early misprints or confusion with older Liberty coinage bearing mid-19th century dates. Collectors began informally linking the two, and the nickname stuck. So while no genuine 1851 Kansas quarter exists, the phrase lives on as part of coin lore, an example of how legends are born through simple human error and imagination. Beyond myths and misprints, the Kansas quarter carries deeper meaning. Released in the same year as the West Virginia, California, Minnesota, and Oregon quarters, it stood apart for its minimalist design. While others featured complex scenes, Kansas embraced simplicity: a lone buffalo, a flower, and the word freedom implied through imagery. This design philosophy made it one of the most aesthetically balanced coins in the entire series. The 50 state quarters, program itself became one of the most successful numismatic projects in history. By 2005, the US Mint reported that over half of Americans were collecting quarters, and more than 100 million people had started coin collections because of it. The Kansas quarter, with its rustic charm and memorable era varieties, became a favorite among both casual collectors and professionals. Teachers used it to discuss statehood, geography, and conservation. Families passed it down as a token of shared discovery. If you examine the Kansas quarter closely, every element is intentional. The buffalo's rough texture contrasts with the smooth sky, symbolizing endurance against adversity. The sunflower's delicate petals echo the sun rising over the plains. Above it all, the Latin motto E pluribus unum, out of many, one, ties Kansas's story to the national identity. The coin is not cluttered. It breathes. It represents harmony between nature and humanity, past and present. Collectors who specialize in Kansas quarters often look for specific details. Sharp strike lines in the buffalo's fur, full definition in the sunflower, and clear separation in lettering. Coins with strong luster and no contact marks can reach high grades. Denver Mint issues typically show slightly better strikes than Philadelphia ones, though both are collectible. Proof coins, struck multiple times with polished eyes, exhibit deep mirror backgrounds and frosted reliefs, perfect for display. When grading Kansas quarters, experts focus on four things: strike quality, luster, surface preservation, and eye appeal. A coin graded MS67 instead of MS65 can double or triple in value. Certified coins from PCGS or NGC fetch higher prices at auction because buyers trust their authenticity. For collectors, condition is everything. But the Kansas quarter's true value lies beyond price. It tells a story about survival, of the buffalo, of Kansas, of liberty itself. It reminds us that freedom isn't just declared. It's defended and renewed with every generation. It connects the 19th century frontier spirit with the modern American dream. When you hold it, you hold more than metal, you hold memory. 2 decades later, the 2005 Kansas quarter still circulates quietly in wallets and cash registers. Most people spend it without a second glance. Yet for those who pause to look, it's a small time capsule of history. It whispers of 1850 settlers, native nations, dusty trails, and golden fields. It hums with the same energy that once drove pioneers westward. Its message remains timeless. Liberty endures. The myths surrounding it, the 1851 confusion, the "in God we rust" legend only add layers to its mystique. They show how deeply humans crave stories, even in the simplest objects. Coins aren't just currency. They're storytellers. They carry the fingerprints of eras, the ideals of nations, and the imperfections of human hands. When viewed symbolically, the Kansas quarter represents balance. The buffalo embodies the strength of the land, the sunflower the light. Of the sky, together they stand beneath words of unity, e pluribus unum, showing that even diverse forces can coexist in harmony. In a world often divided, that a powerful message wrapped in nickel and copper. And so the liberty spirit continues, not as a seated figure or a shining torch, but as a buffalo standing free in endless fields. That's the genius of the design. It redefines liberty for a new century. Instead of a personification, it gives us nature itself as the emblem of freedom. If you ever come across a shiny Kansas quarter, check its details. Look for the mint mark, P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, S for San Francisco. Examine "in God we trust" carefully. Maybe you'll spot that missing. T, look at the sunflower's petals. If they're sharp, you've got a well-struck coin. And if the luster dances like sunlight on grass, you're holding something special. Collectors say every Kansas quarter has its own personality. Some carry faint die cracks, others soft strikes, a few perfect proof-like surfaces. Each tells a slightly different version of the same story. In auctions today, rare varieties and high-grade examples continue to draw interest. On eBay and major numismatic platforms, prices range from a few dollars to several hundred. Yet even if it's only worth face value, the Kansas quarter is worth keeping for its art, its meaning, and its connection to American heritage. When the 50-state quarters program concluded in 2008, it had changed the way Americans viewed coins forever. It proved that currency could educate, inspire, and unite. The Kansas issue remains one of its quiet masterpieces, a blend of history, symbolism, and national pride. The coin's deeper story is about transformation. The buffalo that once faced extinction now stands immortalized in metal. The sunflower that blooms in harsh soil reminds us that hope persists. The date 1861 marks the triumph of freedom in a land once divided. And the phrase "in God we trust," whether perfect or imperfectly struck, continues to embody faith in resilience. Perhaps that's why the Kansas quarter endures in collectors' hearts. It's not flashy, but it's meaningful. It's not rare, but it's rich with spirit. It tells us that liberty isn't confined to monuments or speeches. It lives quietly, in the details of everyday life, in the coins that pass from hand to hand. So next time you receive change and spot that proud buffalo, pause for a second. Remember the history beneath your fingertips, the prairies, the settlers, the struggles, the hope. Think of the generations before us who defined what liberty means. And realize that even in something as ordinary as a quarter, extraordinary stories live on. Because true worth is never just about price. It's about connection. And in that sense, the 2005 Kansas Liberty quarter is priceless, a shining reminder that freedom, like the sunflower, always turns toward the light. The Liberty Quarter $2005 Kansas coin, a symbol of heritage, myth, and meaning. From Buffalo Plains to auction halls, it continues to capture imaginations across America. May its story remind us all that liberty, though sometimes weathered, never fades.